Hello and welcome to the third India-ASEAN Youth Conference. In today's fast-changing world, India and ASEAN have a key role to play in the shaping peace and progress across the Indo-Pacific. As longtime partners with shared values and growing influence, both our region also faces common challenges, from global power shift to security concern. This third India ASEAN Youth Conference then brings to us young leaders to discuss these issues, share fresh ideas, explore new ways to strengthen cooperation for a more stable and prosperous future. Therefore, without further ado, I would like to hand over the floor to the President of the Geostrata, Mr. Pratyaksh Kumar.
Hello, everyone. It is a great honor for me to address this third edition of the India-ASEAN Youth Conference. And I'm looking forward with much excitement and more curiosity to hear from all our guests and delegates. I would like to begin my address by contextualizing it in a framework. Now, with the rise of the Indo-Pacific as one of the most defining regions of the world, and as the global order, it's increasingly getting fractured on multiple lines, the significance of India-ASEAN cooperation has never witnessed, in my opinion, a greater prominence. To start with, this cooperation, it is not new. As far as we can remember, and as far as history can go, the two regions have existed as organic partners. We've interacted with each other through culture, through trade, and exchange of everything that lies in between. I remember what Noto said in a previous edition. He spoke about how ASEAN has the capability of being the magnet for several world groups in the world. Now, this is something that India absolutely believes in. For instance, he spoke about how every region, every group has a vision for the Indo Pacific. Similarly, our vision or the Indian vision for the Indo Pacific is deeply rooted in the belief of ASEAN centrality. At last, I would like to say that as we go ahead in time, our world is bound to face some collective challenges. Now, these challenges are going to be the ones which they won't adhere to our borders, they won't adhere to our ideologies. And with this, there comes a need for greater integration and cooperation of ideas, of practices, and more importantly, implementation. And that is why we are here. And one of the best ways, again, in my opinion, to initiate this cooperation is right from the youth. Thank you so much, everyone. And with this, I pass on the mic to Noto.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you can hear me well. So my name is Noto. I'm founder of Foreign Policy Talks. Maybe it's a bit funny that you see this headpiece, but I used this last year or so during the second part of our conference. And then we're happy to see you again this year for the third version of this conference. And I think we want to make it annually, every year. And very pleased to meet our colleagues from Geostrata. I think it's been a great cooperation with you to organize this conference, and it's good to see a lot of young leaders of ASEAN in India today or this afternoon. I just want to mention a couple of things to give you a bit of context of why we do this conference, and hopefully can get some thoughts from all of you during this today's discussion. Number one is I remember that many of us think that we probably have a geographical proximity, but actually we don't have really a strong mutual understanding that is actually required by both sides, right? We need to understand what's actually the trends that happening in the two region, what is actually the situation that makes us needs to work closer, right? Especially in facing a lot of challenges coming from outside ASEAN, outside India, right? That's why we make this conference. Second, there's a lot of conversation in the past few months, especially of um, of what us Asian countries are doing now. I think many of Asian countries are now restructuring its relationship with many countries, recalibrating their strategy to engage with many countries, right, including ASEAN countries and also India. It's not coming without reasons. I think the main reason is because of there are a lot of uncertainty outside India and ASEAN. And I think what we need to do is to be careful of what we do, especially in engaging other countries. The third point I want to share is that we see the trends of how ASEAN countries are becoming more confident and trust towards its own potential. We see there is a strong push to enhance and promote regional economic resilience, right? And although it's very good to say, it's not easy to implement. Right. We need to really review our supply chain, whether we need to diversify some of our partners and one or two components of our supply chain, including with India. Do we need also to expand our trade relationship with different countries, including with India, and so on and so forth. But we need to use the momentum of our confidence and trust towards our potential by also looking into other partners. There are a lot of there are a lot of statistics saying that our relationship with India is not really optimal, right? But that's exactly the chance for us to grow further. And we need your thoughts, we need your insights today. We're happy to welcome all of you. And please give your best insights to make sure that our relationship will go uh, bigger and also stronger in the future. Thank you very much. And I go back to the MC.
Thank you, Mr. Pratyaksh and Mr. Thomas, for those insightful words. We also have three very special guests before we begin our session. Firstly, we would like to move on to a video address by Ms. Adhyanti, Director of ASEAN Economic Cooperation, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia.
Founder of Foreign Policy Talks, Bapak Thomas Noto Suwaneto, distinguished speakers and moderators, all youth participants, namaste and warm greetings from Jakarta, Indonesia. It is a real honor to join you at this ASEAN India Youth Conference, a flagship platform that brings together some of the brightest, most passionate young minds in our region. Even though we're meeting virtually, I can still feel the energy, drive, and shared purpose that connect us across borders. Let me begin by sharing a few stories that show just how powerful young people can be. In India, Ritesh Agarwal started Oyo Rooms when he was just 17 and now leads one of the world's largest hotel chains, including in Southeast Asia. Two brothers, Shravan and Sanjay Kumaran, launched their tech company, Go Dimensions, as teenagers, creating mobile apps used around the world. In Southeast Asia, Anderson Sumarli from Indonesia co-founded the Ajaib app to help more young people invest and turned it into a unicorn startup. In the Philippines, Aisa Mijeno built a saltwater-powered lamp with her team, bringing light to off-grid communities. These change makers show us something important. We don't wait for the future, we build it, and youth are already leading that change. Distinguished participants, youth are not just part of the conversation. They are the drivers of change. Youth engagement is a key part of the ASEAN-India partnership. We share common values and a commitment to a future that's inclusive, innovative, and sustainable. Through exchange programs, leadership forums, and digital platforms, we are giving young people the space to speak up, take action, and shape policy. This conference is one of those platforms, not just to talk, but to spark ideas, build connections, and co-create solutions. In a world facing economic uncertainty, climate change, and rapid transformation, our partnership must grow stronger, more united, and more youth-led than ever before. Now let me share a few numbers. Last year, trade between ASEAN and India reached USD 107 billion. India's investment in ASEAN more than doubled. That is real progress. But the most powerful number is this. Over 500 million young people live in ASEAN and India. That's more than 500 million reasons to believe in our future. India is emerging as a global leader in AI, fintech, and space technology. ASEAN is also accelerating its digital transformation. This opens vast opportunities for youth entrepreneurship, green growth, and digital inclusion. Yet, as we look to the future, let's not forget real progress is about people and the planet. We must protect what sustains us: our food, our forests, and our farmers, and the young people who will inherit them. ASEAN and India are already working on long-term strategies for sustainable food systems. These efforts are not just about policy, they are about our shared responsibility. Distinguished participants, as we move forward, I encourage deeper collaboration in startup development, digital innovation, and sustainable growth. Let's support, build ideas, nurture change makers, and ensure no one is left behind. Remember, youth are not just the leaders of our tomorrow, you are already leading today. And let me leave you with this. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Let this conference be the beginning of journeys taken together across ASEAN and India toward a future that is innovative, inclusive, and full of possibility. Thank you, and I wish you an inspiring and impactful conference.
Would like to extend our immense gratitude to Ms. Adhyanti for their motivational word that must have pushed our fellow speakers. With that, we come to another guest, Ms. Suhas Ingle, Vice President, Indo-ASEAN Business Chamber, Pune.
Namaste and warm greetings to everyone. Respected dignitaries, youth leaders, policymakers, and my friends from across ASEAN and India. It is a great honor to be part of this landmark dialogue that embodies the spirit of rising global partnership, the India-ASEAN collaboration, as we collectively transition from look-east to an act-east policy framework. I thank and congratulate Geostrata team for their valuable contribution and exemplary work for the youth and women in India and ASEAN in recent years. Indo-ASEAN Business Chamber, or IABC in short, is proud to be at the forefront of this transformation. As a platform dedicated to fostering economic, educational, and environmental cooperation, IABC recognizes the potential of youth as the strongest bridge between our regions. To further this vision, IABC has promoted World ESG Forum, a global initiative to foster sustainability, inclusion, and future readiness through the principles of environmental, social, and governance. Now, let me share with you our flagship initiative that we believe can become a catalyst for change. We have proposed to train 1 million ESG young ambassadors over next 3 years. Now, why ESG and why youth? The answer is very simple because the future is yours. Climate change, digital inequality, economic disparity, these challenges are not bound by borders. They require global, sustainable, and people-centric solutions. ESG is not just about compliance. It is about building a culture of responsible leadership. And all you youths are our responsible leaders of tomorrow. Our program aims to educate, empower, and engage youth and women in ASEAN and India to become local champions of ESG principles in university campuses, in corporations, in communities and policy circles. Now, what will the ESG young ambassadors will do? Firstly, they will learn from the experts across the sustainability, social justice, and governance. Then they will work on the local internship projects aligned with SDG, that is Sustainable Development Goals, supported by the industry and society. Next, they will create the grassroots awareness on climate action, digital inclusion, women empowerment, and ethical governance. And fourthly, they will participate in global dialogue, summits, and impact challenges through World ESG Forum. In doing so, uh, our ESG young ambassadors won't just learn the theory, they will live the change. They will be the examples of this change. Now, I would like to explain what is the impact of 1 million ESG ambassadors on Asian youth and women. Now, this program has an inclusive growth at the bottom. For our friends in ASEAN, especially women and youth, it opens the pathways to greener jobs, international internships, and entrepreneurial opportunities. My previous speakers have already discussed about the opportunities ASEAN is offering to the youth across the region. Then it will nurture the community leadership where young people become local sustainable influencers. It will give access to India and ASEAN collaborative platforms in number one, education, trade, and social innovation. We strongly believe that empowering women and youth in ESG is the most strategic investment in the region's future. Now, we request a call to action. Friends, in this multilateral era, leadership must be collaborative and ethical and inclusive. As we act east, let us also act together and work together for this noble cause of 1 million ESG ambassadors. I invite universities, youth networks, corporates, and ASEAN government stakeholders to partner with Indo-ASEAN Business Chamber and World ESG Forum in this transformative journey. Let us not wait for the future. Let us train it, let us shape it, and let us lead it together. Together, we will nurture 1 million ESG ambassadors who will carry forward the torch of sustainability, peace, and shared prosperity across Asia and the world. Thank you. Jai Hind and Salam ASEAN. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Suhas, for those powerful words. It's indeed highlight how the future is youth and building the culture of responsible leadership. With that, we come to our third very special guest, Ms. Henrietta D'Souza, Senior Advisor, Indo-ASEAN Business Chamber, Pune.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm very honored to be amongst the most brilliant minds gathered here from India and ASEAN at this youth conference, and it's brilliant to see so many of you all working towards a common cause. Um, while I say it's an honor to be here before a group of leaders, because that's what I see you all as, you're already leaders. I represent the Indo-ASEAN Business Chamber as a senior advisor at Pune. But I'm also a very strong believer in what this room represents, which is a lot of possibility. I see a lot of possibility in your discussions, in the dreams that you have, in the vision that you have. And today, where we find ourselves in a world where global dynamics are shifting really by the hour. However, amid all this volatility lies something very incredible, very powerful, which is a partnership, which is today not only relevant but necessary because we share more than borders. Together, we represent more than 2 billion voices, sharing heritage, ambition, economic aspirations, and a vision for a cooperative Asia. So, As you progress into your discussions, allow me to offer you three reflections as you progress into your role as change makers today. One, you are the bridge, not just the future. You are the leaders, not tomorrow, but today. You are the bridges today between nations, between cultures, and between generations. As you can see, you have ages across over here. In an increasingly divided world, you are the human link between nations, between ideologies. So you carry the empathy to understand and the creativity to build. So don't wait for a title or a position to lead. Lead now. Build those bridges now. Second, collaboration always beats competition. Our power lies not in outperforming each other, but in outthinking problems together. India and ASEAN share centuries of cultural and economic ties. We have shared responsibility to co-create solutions for climate, digital inclusion, peace, equity, and sustainable growth. The most powerful question you can ask is, what can we solve together? Third, lead with identity, not ego. Leadership is all about values. It's about being anchored in who you are. It's about standing tall in your roots, your language, your history, your values. And today the world needs authenticity, not loud voices, not an echo, but to be rooted, to be real. And that's your greatest strength. So if in the past decade or in the past few years, it was about looking east, then going forward, the next decade should be about acting together. And acting together means agency. So it's more than a strategy. It's more of a people-powered promise. So as you debate, discuss, and dream over the next few hours in this conference and over the next few days, remember you are here to represent your countries and importantly, most importantly, to shape your region and our world. So let's lead together, let's act together. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for those kind words. For certainly shedding up the light on possibility and vision for cooperative Asia. That will help us to lead, as you said, with identity and not as an echo. Without further ado, let's proceed ahead with our very first session of the day. This session brings to you another interesting theme. This year's theme for session 1 is Building Bridges, Not Barriers, that will be focusing upon Trump's US ASEAN India strategy. We are all aware of US dominant role, the implication of Trump's administrative policy, and the active role US play in the maritime theaters of the Indo-Pacific region, which lay for itself a strategic geo player. Amid this, another reality we face today is that of economic and security challenges due to policy decision, global trade, and changing economic dynamics. We talk about answering three important questions through our session 1, which focuses upon looking out strategic interests of US in the Indo-Pacific and will they align with the efforts of India and ASEAN? Secondly, focusing upon US tariff imposition and how it affects trade in Asia. And can India and ASEAN, through its regional cooperation, potentially diversify these trade partnerships? And lastly, it will try to bring more knowledge and answer to the evolving security landscape of the Indo-Pacific and how can Quad nation, particularly US and India, collaborate with ASEAN member states. So let's, without further ado, proceed ahead with our first session and our first speaker, Ms. Preetu.
Thank you, moderator. Distinguished delegates, it is so wonderful to be connected with you all here today virtually. I am Preetu Mahershi, Situation Analysis Lead at the Geostrata. In an era where strategic convergence defines diplomacy, the Indo-Pacific stands at a pivotal crossroads. Let's start with America first, pun very much intended. The Trump administration's America First posture has recalibrated US engagement with both ASEAN and India. Assertive in maritime presence, yet unpredictable in trade. While the US sought to counterbalance China, its tariff war strained Asian economies and exposed vulnerabilities in global supply chains. India and ASEAN, committed to a rules based order, share a vision that resists unilateralism and champions open sea lanes. Deeper regional integration through initiatives like Act East and digital connectivity can create buffers against these external shocks. And security too demands synergy. With that, I'll tell you what I mean. I mean that through the Quad and defense dialogues, India and the US must act as enablers and not imposers, ensuring ASEAN centrality is preserved and not bypassed. Together, we must build bridges of resilience and not barriers of dependency in shaping an Indo Pacific that is free, inclusive, and future ready. With that, I'll pass the floor back to the moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Preetu, for those fine words. Now we move on to our second speaker, Mr. Marvin.
Am I audible? Okay, so hello everyone.
Yes, you are perfect.
I'm Marvin
Perfect.
Rehogar. Hello everyone. I'm from the Philippines and I am the delegation of the De La Salle College of St. Benilde. So in today's Indo-Pacific, the balance of power is no longer abstract. It's unfolding in real time across contested waters. Consistent with the logic of offensive realism, where great powers seek to maximize security through regional dominance. The US, under the Trump administration, has adopted a deterrence by denial posture to prevent China from unilaterally controlling key maritime corridors. For me, this is not mere symbolism. It involves persistent naval deployments, the legal enforcement of UNCLOS, aimed at defending freedom of navigation, especially in the South China Sea. By positioning the US on a forward deployed assets and deepening ties with general partners, Washington really signals its resolve to impose tangible cost on any attempt to alter maritime status quo through coercion, thereby reinforcing a balance that limits Beijing's ability to act unilaterally. On the other hand, India exhibits a behavior that aligns with the strategic imperative to counterbalance rising regional hegemony, especially China and the US. Though the revitalized smaller bar exercises, especially Australia's return in 2020, India really enhanced itself on operational interoperability and anti-submarine warfare and carrier tactics. These moves underscore of what India's really is and its pragmatic shift towards a balance of power, logic, even in the absence of formal alliance commitments. Furthermore, if we go to ASEAN, if we focus much more on its consensus-based diplomacy, it might suggest caution because there is a quiet recalibration underway. Vietnam has increased patrols around the Vanguard Bank and expanded naval cooperation with Washington, while Indonesia has reinforced its maritime posture in the Natuna Sea amid recurring Chinese incursions. While ASEAN as a bloc may not confront hegemony directly, its members are increasingly operationalizing multilateral and bilateral channels to uphold maritime order, suggesting a functional, if fragmented, deterrent architecture. So with that, I'll pass the mic back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin, for highlighting those important points. With that, we move on to another speaker from Startup, Ms. Anshika Malik.
Hello, everyone. This is Anshika Malik from the Geostrata, and I'm thankful to the moderator for providing me the opportunity to contribute my views to this extremely crucial theme. The Indo-Pacific is a dynamic theater, demanding partnership, not primacy. We have seen the era of unilateralism and economic disruption that has taught us that this region must not become a zero-sum game. ASEAN, which is championing multilateralism and a rules-based order, stands alongside India in resisting great power hegemony and advocating for a free, open, and stable Indo-Pacific. Economically, we must build resilience, diversify supply chains, and deepen India-ASEAN integration through comprehensive trade agreements. Now, moving on to the theme of this session, US tariffs has reshaped global trade, which has encouraged India and ASEAN to strengthen economic ties, to boost regional trade, while also adapting to the rising protectionism. On security, I propose a collaborative effort among regional groupings that are facing these evolving threats. The Quad must engage ASEAN, not as passive stakeholders, but as equal partners. The need of the hour is where US administration and power complements regional aspirations, with ASEAN and India as stable entities at the helm, and US engaging as a responsible partner. We must forge power partnerships. The Indo-Pacific's future must be written together on shared and fair terms. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anshika, for those words and highlighting the new economic policies of Trump and how we can move forward. With that, we move on to another speaker, Ms. Shamira.
Hello everyone, I am Shamira Nasrin from Malaysia, one of the member states of ASEAN, and here's my opening. Esteemed delegates, the cascading effects of unilateral tariff regime, particularly from the United States, has underscored the vulnerabilities of the global trade interdependence. So for ASEAN and also India, two dynamic regions at the heart of the Indo-Pacific, it is no longer sufficient to actually adapt passively to external shocks. Instead, the moment calls deliberate strategic recalibration of our economics framework. So this is not just responding to disruption, but it's about re-engineering resilience and also future-proofing our cooperation in a multipolar world economy. My point number one is enhance regional trade infrastructure and policy coherence. So to begin with, the ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement, AIFTA, must be revitalized and re-expanded to reflect new realities, particularly in the domains of the digital commerce, professional services, and sustainability linked trade. We must also push for greater regulatory alignment, harmonized customs procedure, and interoperable trade systems. So these policies has to be upgraded, will help to unlock latent potential within intra-religion value change. My point number two will be the path of economic sovereignty lies in the building, robust in diversified supply chain ecosystem. ASEAN and also India should co-invest in infrastructure linkages, including land, sea, and also digital corridors to enhance physical and data connectivity. So this also includes to establish resilient hubs for critical sectors such as healthcare, manufacturing, semiconductors, clean energy, supported by also strategizing financing instruments and cross-border industrial planning. In further of that, I would also suggest to expand South-South economy corridors where ASEAN and also India actively cultivate alternative economic corridors beyond traditional trade accesses. Through enhanced engagement with Africa, Latin America, and the Gulf Cooperation Council, we can forge equitable and mutually beneficial South-South economical frameworks, establishing coordinated trade missions, bilateral investment treaties, and regional trade promotion agencies that can help to facilitate market access, capital flows, and strategic diversification. I also encourage to foster innovation and inclusion must be included to become the central of shared economy strategy. I propose the development of the ASEAN-India Collaborative Innovation Platform that links MSMEs, startups, and research institutions, which will enhance the capacity to initiate e-commerce integration, climate tech, sustainable finance, and also re-ensuring equitable access to emerging opportunities. So in my closure will be ASEAN and India stand at the critical inflection point where we have to write and move from reactive policies adjustment to proactive regional stewardship. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Samira, for those words that talks about building a more innovative South-South corridor. With that, we move on to Ms. Dia.
Greetings to everyone. I am Dia Atul, a junior researcher at the Geostrata. At the offset, I would like to extend my gratitude to the moderator for giving the floor to me. Now, based on the convergences in literature existing in terms of India-ASEAN partnerships and keeping in mind US-induced uncertainties, there are broadly three constituents of a balanced ASEAN response to US strategic behavior in the Indo-Pacific: strategic alignment, economic diversification, and narrative institutionalization. The strategic interest of the US in the Indo Pacific, particularly its emphasis on a free and open Indo Pacific, broadly aligns with ASEAN centrality. While alignment exists in terms of objectives and deterrence, the approaches differ. Now, while coordination platforms like the East Asia Summit and the ASEAN Regional Forum can help bridge these differences, such platforms remain effective only to the extent that they are emphasized in contemporary diplospeak. Moving on, the India ASEAN vision must be diversified in terms of portfolios and partnerships by including digital and green sectors in our FTA, building regional value chains that focus a little bit more on resilience and diversification, and by increasing our engagement with Africa, Latin America, and Pacific Island nations. Lastly, the sovereignty of regional narratives has been eroding because of the dominance of US and China in Indo Pacific discourse, which sidelines regional visions, especially marginalizing ASEAN centrality in minilateral formats. To circumvent this, we need to increase Quad plus ASEAN collaboration and reaffirm the ASEAN outlook on Indo Pacific in India Quad policies, all to re establish that we alone hold the reins defining regional narratives. Thank you very much. I would now like to pass the floor back to the moderator.
Thank you, Dia, for highlighting how narrative institutionalization is changing the world. Now we move on to another speaker, Mr. Christopher.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are perfectly audible.
Namaskar, mabuhay, salamat sore. Salutations to you, Indian and ASEAN youth delegates who are determined to shape a better India, ASEAN, and beyond. In the prevalent geopolitical hurly-burly in the Indo-Pacific region with the unpredictable US foreign policy, India and ASEAN need one another more than ever before, may it be in the field of geopolitics or economics. In this context, India and ASEAN's role is no longer peripheral or aspirational to each other. It is a strategic imperative. As a resident power with normative alignment to ASEAN principles, India is uniquely positioned to serve as a stabilizing force in Southeast Asia's security and economic order. Ladies and gentlemen, to operationalize this role, Track 1.5 and Track 2 dialogues must evolve from episodic exchanges into structured, agenda-driven institutional interfaces. That being said, these dialogues should no longer be informal or ad hoc meetings, mandate-based agendas, follow-up mechanisms, and policy integration into official decision-making process fed into Track 1 policy-making process, such as the ASEAN Summit, India's Ministry of External Affairs, or regional loans. India did not have much of defense and security ties with ASEAN countries, but it is now being improved as per its East policy. My country, the Philippines, was the first country to buy the state-of-the-art BrahMos missile from India. Now to move forward to prevent diplomatic friction against one country and to contribute to the South China Sea Code of Conduct, minilateral formats such as India, Philippines, Vietnam, or India, US, China, ASEAN can be utilized. And in case you missed it, last year, India-Indonesia Track 1.5 dialogue was held in Mumbai. What we can get from it is that it turned out that Indonesia's as well as other ASEAN member states focus on ASEAN centrality contrast with India's broader outreach through mechanisms like BIMSTEC, which reflect differences in regional priorities. Nonetheless, the dialogue highlighted opportunities for closer ties, particularly in defense technology, maritime domains, and cybersecurity. Platforms such as the India-Indonesia Track 1.5 dialogue and institutions like ORF, ASEA's Use of Asia Institutes, and the ASEAN India Center, as well as youth forums, including but not limited to ASEAN India Youth Summit and this one, ASEAN India Youth Conference, can serve as critical bridges between official statecraft and independent strategic thinking. However, the impact remains limited unless they are embedded within a formal mechanism that includes policy feedbacks, loops, implementation reviews and measurable outcomes under the ASEAN-India Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. So regularizing these dialogues into standing forums with thematic working groups on cybersecurity, maritime governance, digital connectivity, and supply chains de-risking will allow ASEAN and India to move from consensus building to policy convergence. At the same time, strategic cooperation must be grounded in pragmatic diplomacy and mutual recognition of constraints. ASEAN must contextualize India's cautious disengagement from RCEP and its partial stance on EF within the framework of India's domestic economic recalibration and strategic autonomy. Conversely, India must internalize ASEAN inherent pluralism, because in ASEAN we have 10 states with 10 strategic identities and 10 different threat perceptions. So we need to communicate clearly about each other's differences to reinforce, not to rival our regional stand vis-a-vis ASEAN centrality. And the significant conceptual overlap between India's Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, or IPOI, and ASEAN's outlook on the Indo-Pacific, or AOIP, provides a strong foundation for codifying a shared strategic grammar, but we need to converge the two of them so we can have what is required, an operational translation through funded multi-stakeholder and results-oriented institutions. So, if we design purposefully and implemented strategically, multi-track diplomacy and unilateralism can transform both ASEAN and India cooperation from episodic engagement to a resilient and institutionalized partnership. So, these mechanisms will offer insulation from external unpredictability, like what is happening now to the US foreign policy. So this will help us to not be dependent on other global superpowers. Like now, in an era of great power competition, it is not the loudest actors who can shape the future, but the most coherent and coordinated. And India and ASEAN must now step into that role together, deliberately and decisively. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher, for those words. Now we move on to Ms. Poshika.
Namaste, I'm Poshika, a researcher at the Geostrata. I would like to thank the moderator for giving me this opportunity. Today we gather not just to discuss about building bridges, not barriers, but also to recognize the extraordinary bridge we currently stand on, the India-ASEAN partnership. This partnership truly holds power. Together, we represent over 2.3 billion people and a combined GDP of more than $7.5 trillion. And it's not just numbers. Our trade reached $121 billion last year. That makes ASEAN India's fourth largest trading partner, which says a lot about how strong and meaningful this relationship really is. But this bridge is more than numbers. It carries a vision of sovereign equality, shared growth, and regional progress. From the Kaladan multimodal project to India-Myanmar Thailand Highway, we are not waiting to be connected, we are engineering our connections ourselves. We are bound by centuries of civilizational exchanges, from Ramayana in Java to Indian-inspired temples in Angkor. We can organize youth-led art, music, storytelling, and language festivals across Indo-Pacific cities to preserve shared heritage, counter polarization, and deepen mutual respect. In a shifting world, India and ASEAN must move from being shaped by frameworks to shaping them. Where past strategies like Trump's transactional US ASEAN India engagement prioritized power balance, we must prioritize people first diplomacy. True bridges are built not with conditions but with shared commitments. And India and ASEAN must co architect a resilient and rule based Indo Pacific. Together, we can lead on digital infrastructure, climate action, maritime stability, and a lot more. With that, I humbly pass the floor back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Poshika, for highlighting how youth voices in Indo-Pacific can shape the day-to-day. With that, we move on to Mr. Heyman from the delegation ASEAN side.
A very good day. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are perfectly audible.
Okay, thank you, Madam Moderator. A very good day to our distinguished guests and also honorable delegates. So for today, we are speaking basically about India and ASEAN. And without a fact, we of course have to know what's happening in terms of US and also China regarding tariff and everything. So what is most important key component if you see? Global security and world peace. And I believe from ASEAN, we hold a key component and a key position for this because for now, one of the greatest and also the most peaceful collaborative in the nation is ASEAN. And we believe this should be utilized both for ASEAN and also for India. So one of the key points and also arguments I'd like to bring forward is institutional defense dialogues between India and ASEAN, where we can have dialogues and also conferences regarding key issues on how we can tackle, for example, what's happening in the South China Sea, where new military bases is appearing in front of Malaysia and also Philippines. So this is alarming from what we see in reality, because at the end of the day, we have to accept that world peace is also key and also crucial. And from ASEAN, we believe that it can be a good place and a strategical place for everyone to work together, especially under Quad, because we believe as India is part of Quad, it's also a key and also important role to maintain world peace everywhere. And since the whole change is happening between global powerhouse between China and US, I believe personally that India has to use this opportunity to put itself ahead in front of them. So besides that, if you look into defense industrial corporations and also in terms of intelligence and also technology, we believe that ASEAN can also help India and India can also help us as well, because we have countries like example like Singapore is very good in cybersecurity. So we believe from ASEAN that these types of key technologies can be shared between India and also India can share its technology towards ASEAN, or now we can maintain the security of our country and our nation according to what's happening in the global era. So besides that, we believe that Asia is a place which is prone to tsunamis and everything, global pandemics and everything. So with the key and also technology that India has in terms of humanitarian disaster reliefs and everything, they can of course share that technology with ASEAN as well. So this actually works not as only how India can benefit or only how ASEAN can benefit. I believe that this is a position where India can help ASEAN and ASEAN can also help India back again. So I think it's no more one person helping another. We believe that we should learn how to share knowledge and to share the experience and how we can help each other to grow, especially in the global era. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Heyman, for those words. Now we move on to the last speaker of the session, Mr. Yash Pandey.
Thank you so much, Agrima. Heartfelt thanks to providing me the floor to speak. Namaste and warm greetings to everyone. My name is Yash, and I'm honored to represent India and the Geostrata at the ASEAN India Youth Conference 2025. As a student of public policy, I believe we are here not just as delegates, but as partners in shaping a shared future. The theme, Building Bridges, Not Barriers, goes beyond rhetoric. In a world facing climate risk and digital disruptions, it is essential. As youth, we are not only inheritors of global challenges, but designers of solutions. India's Act East policy shows the strength of our ties with ASEAN. But today, we need more than government-to-government cooperation. We must cultivate people-to-people partnerships, especially youth-led initiatives based on trust and vision. At the Geostrata, we believe that strategic dialogue matters, but it is cross-border cooperation that truly counts. We must cultivate, whether through co-producing digital public goods or advancing climate-resilient agriculture, there is immense potential. So let us just not talk, but take action. This conference is a statement that our generation is ready to lead with compassion, strategy, and common purpose. With that, I would like to pass the floor back to the moderator. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Yash, for those words. With that, we move on to a 15 minutes discussion, which talks about not just the problem, but strategic solution. What's the best way to start? Then the question that was raised by Mr. Noto itself. He is interested to hear about how Quad should actively engage with ASEAN countries, and how collaboration can take up between the nations? Anyone who like to answer that first can go ahead raising their hands, and we can then proceed ahead, one from ASEAN side, one from the India delegate, and that's how the discussion will be proceeding ahead.
I start with it. So, to know about Quad and ASEAN and how they can collaborate on different aspects, I think one of the aspect can be vaccine and vaccine diplomacy, which we've seen throughout during the COVID-19 pandemic. Secondly, I think Quad has been very readily active in HADR operations. So, giving an instance, like if you see any disaster management need arises for any of the ASEAN countries, I think Quad can be, and Quad's initiative for HADR can be something on which we can collaborate effectively. Secondly, infrastructure is again something on which Quad and ASEAN countries can collaborate effectively. We have seen the trilateral highways, but we have also seen that India is continuously working on development initiatives. So, integrating Quad's whole supply chain resilience initiative and knowing about ASEAN's MSME cooperation, I think these are some of the areas which we can explore and both of the entities can collaborate on. That will be my views.
Thank you, Anshika, for strategically highlighting the places we can collaborate upon to build this strengthening partnership between the nation. With that, another question that Nandita has carefully addressed to Ms. Heyman talks about how India and ASEAN can play a key role in maintaining peace around the world. Then, what specifically defense related or cybersecurity framework do you think make the vision real? Mr. Heyman.
Okay, first and foremost, we have to understand certain key components. For example, if you look in the world right now, Malaysia is one of the key semiconductors producing countries in the world, and it is in a key location. It's in the Straits of Malacca, which around 80% of world exports goes through it. So besides that, Malaysia is also part of a new upcoming and also growing data center, data center among the countries in all around the world. So we believe, for example, all of this requires great technology. For example, we don't want data breaching. For example, we don't want any cyber security issues, especially in Malaysia. So we believe that besides the tech valley of US, the tech valley of Asia is in India, without a doubt. So based on that, maybe India can provide its technology, its support to Malaysia, or example in ASEAN, based on a return where we can actually provide them import and export, lesser taxes, and also a much more convenient environment for them to work with in terms of semiconductors or data center. So these are the types of things that we can actually work with. If you look at Singapore itself, Singapore is one of the world's leading cyber security nation. So their technology is being used in US, is being used in Australia, is being used in New Zealand. So based on this security, we can also help India, because we have to understand the flow and also the way of going to war is different. Those days they used to carry cannons and also guns. Now no, we are going to technology. It's more towards data breaching, cyber securities and everything. So the thing is changing, is alarming. So in that way, maybe Singapore can use its technology to also help and also guide India. So this is how we want to work. We want to be in a position where ASEAN and also India can work together to help each other to maintain the global security and also global peace. At the same time, maintain a friendly environment for us to do business as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hemna, for strategically answering that question on how semiconductor and influential environment for both the economies to develop will help to take care of these challenges that cybersecurity often present in this era today. With that, I would like Dia now to expand a little more about the strategic alignment and the narrative institutionalization that she even talked about in her speech. How can then, through this discussion, this particular strategic narrative can align and collaborate with youth of both the nations to formulate more strategic partnership? Dia.
Right. Thank you so much for your question. For this, I propose an India-ASEAN mapping for barriers, integration, and cooperation. Now, the way in which this can unfold is through coordinated dialogue mechanisms and coordinated policy responses with respect to three areas particularly. The first are barriers, which deal with tariffs, protectionism, and choke points that we've been seeing currently in the status quo. The second is through integration, through collaborative frameworks and digital corridors, as were previously suggested by some of the other speakers. And the third and the last is through cooperation by way of proactive trade and policy and crisis responses that go out from India and ASEAN in a coordinated manner in order to ensure that they are they are sealed from any shifts that take place externally in the world. So that is what I propose.
Thank you, Ria, for talking about the external shield. I believe from our ASEAN delegation side, another person which specifically talked about diplomatic engagement at length was Christopher. So can you then expand on the solutions that we as youth derive for these external shields and these diplomatic engagement? What we as a bigger role can play in a bigger picture?
Thank you so much for that wonderful question. So yeah, so diplomacy is really important nowadays. So we need to understand that our relationships, ASEAN-India relationship, as well as our relationship with the USA and China must be grounded in pragmatic diplomacy and mutual recognitions of constraints. For example, in ASEAN-India alone, we have constraints of thinking whether India's actions in regards to the Indo-Pacific is really contributing to ASEAN centrality. So that's why some ASEAN member states are hesitant to collaborate with India in regards to the geopolitical issues here in the Indo-Pacific. And so I guess what we can have is to overlap. Yeah, as I said earlier in my speech, to overlap IPOI and AOIP so that we can have a middle ground framework and convergence through which we can use diplomacy not to really contribute on the rivalry on what we are having right now. So I think that's why diplomacy is important. And what kind of diplomacy? Though track 1 diplomacy is important, we can utilize track 1.5 and track 2 diplomacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher, for rightly highlighting how the middle path and how diplomatic interaction play a crucial role when we talk about building up initial framework between different nations and between even the ASEAN member states itself. Another important question that Anshika highlighted towards Marvin was about Marvin highlighting ASEAN frameworks such as ASEAN Defense Meetings and Indian Ocean Rim Association. Then how can India and ASEAN enhance coordination through these platforms to promote regional stability specifically? Ms. Marvin. If not Mr. Marvin, we can have anyone from the ASEAN delegation side to take up the question.
Agrima, I think we can move ahead from this.
Sure. Another question and another important discussion that took place in the initial phase of session 1 was talking about economic corridors. I believe, Ms. Samira, you have highlighted about the South-South strategic economic corridors that can be built upon. What exactly then you talk about having in these economic corridors that youth play an important part in, and how can youth, through these economic corridors, establish more regional stability between the two nations?
All right, so before answering that question, I think I have a question in the chat box regarding MSMEs, right? So can I just quickly answer that one as well?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So to quickly answer on that, so thank you for the question. So indeed, India has immense untapped potential in the export sector, especially through its vast MSMEs base, which constitute over 90% of the total enterprise and contribute significantly to employment and also GDP. So however, unlike some ASEAN countries such as Vietnam and also effectively integrated MSMEs into global value chains, India still faces challenges related to access, scalability, and competitiveness. So, to build a more integrated and also mutually beneficial export ecosystem, India and ASEAN can focus on three collaborative uh, strategies. So, first, I would suggest market access and digital trade infrastructure, where India and also ASEAN can co develop platforms that connect MSMEs directly with the buyers and also suppliers across the region using tools like e-commerce marketplace and interoperable payment systems. Second, we should establish joint capacity building programs, particularly in areas like export compliances, packaging standard, ESG certification, and digital marketing, so that MSMEs are equipped to meet on global benchmark. Just to add on the payment systems, I think India is very well aware of GPay and also UPay system. And similarly, we in Malaysia, we have touch and go e-wallet system where the interface is actually pretty much the same. And we can co-develop more of sort of platforms to enhance more of the e-commerce marketplaces. And third, I would suggest to explore creation of the ASEAN India MSMEs in innovation corridors where cluster of small businesses can actually co-develop products, engage in technology transfers, and collaborate on regional supply chains, particularly in sectors like agri-tech, textiles, also green manufacturing in this time. So by putting MSMEs at the center of our trade strategy and also ensuring that they are not beneficiaries but co-creators of the economic value, so that we can build a resilient and inclusive export ecosystem that truly reflects the cooperation. Let me get back to you on the second question. I just have to read it again, right? Just go through it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Samira, for strategically answering about green manufacturing, MSMEs, and how we can strategically build that inclusive ecosystem for trade and expanding that trade partnerships that I think in the initial start of this first particular session, we had a question that needs to be answered by the end of the session. And I think we did a perfect job on answering and talking about how strategically we can build and diversify the trade partnership itself. With that, we now come to an end with the session one of building bridges and not barriers, which focused upon US, ASEAN, and India's strategy, talking and highlighting important points by all our speaker. With that, I would like to also pass the floor to the moderator, Felix Petrick from Foreign Policy Talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Agrima, for the wonderful moderations and the insights by all of the delegations at session one. Good afternoon, everyone. Namaste, distinguished delegates and participants. Welcome to session two of the third Indian ASEAN Youth Conference. I'm Felix. You can call me Felix or Patrick. I'm a research fellow at the Foreign Policy Talks, and I'll be the moderator for our second session, Strengthening Ties, China-ASEAN Strategic Engagements and Insights from India. In this session, we will explore China's expanding role in Southeast Asia and how both ASEAN and India can draw insights from each other's approaches in managing their complex relationship with Beijing. We have to admit that China's growing strategic and economic normative influence is now shaping and reshaping global and regional dynamics, including at Southeast Asia and ASEAN, which offers both opportunities and challenges. Because as ASEAN relations with China continues to deepen through pragmatic cooperations and mutual economic cooperation, it also has raised concerns, especially over asymmetrical influences, dependencies, and of course, the potential erosion of strategic autonomy of a particular state members. As external power rivalries continue to intensify and the global order, economic order, and international order becomes increasingly fragmented and dysfunctional, smaller states in ASEAN can no longer rely on the international community and the international order to basically create its own foreign policy, right? There's a increasingly mounting pressure to align or to choose sides, which makes maintaining a balanced and independent foreign policy become increasingly complex. In this session in particular, I hope to invite both ASEAN and Indian youth leaders here today to critically assess this partnership and dependency duality between ASEAN and China and reflect how can we collectively as a region can benefit from our engagement with China without compromising our long-term autonomy or strategic interests. And as we know, India's evolving approach to China, blending competition, cautious engagement, and strategic protection, may offer valuable lessons for us in ASEAN. From competition to diplomatic balancing in multilateral forums, India's strategy demonstrates how can states assert agency amidst great power rivalry. And I just want to really set the context for us because most of us are very young here. India, China, and ASEAN has a combined population of 3.5 billion people. That's almost half of the world population, right? In a world where conflicts, geopolitical interests, a race for global commodities are creating more complex economic relations, how can we, ASEAN, India, and our relationship with China, how can we work these relations and complement each other instead of competing with each other, right? And we will have our differences. How can we manage and address this effectively? These are the issues that will continue and will become more important in the future. And the future depends on you, depends on us, the youth, to pass on the baton from our leaders later, right? So through this dialogue, I hope to really see how we can address our national and regional interests, can ensure strategic autonomy, and address shared challenges from climate change, energy transition, digital disruption, and more importantly, how can we maintain peace, order, and stability while also delivering a prosperous future. Without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker for the second session, Mr. Regi Dimas from the Indonesian National Ship Owner Associations. The floor is yours, Mr. Regi.
Thank you, Kak Felix. Hello, everyone. It's a great opportunity to speak in front of you all. So nowadays, as mentioned before, the Great Power rivalry is becoming increasingly tense. As many experts say, it is the symptoms of the Thucydides threat. Under the heat of geopolitical tensions, ASEAN has been somewhat of a great hedger, hedging between the great powers and securing meaningful cooperations. However, someday in the future, some believe that there will be a day where hedging is not always reliable. So the question remains, what does ASEAN need to do further and beyond to maintain its autonomy under the grasp of China's economic power? So ASEAN need to maintain its autonomy by doing three things, I believe. The first one, maintaining ASEAN centrality. The second one, reassessing its strategic alignment. And the third one, diversification of its traditional partnerships. ASEAN centrality is very important to strengthen cooperations between ASEAN members. ASEAN cannot always just be a market, but must become the main players in the market itself. Furthermore, ASEAN need to focus on strategic multi-alignments. ASEAN approach need to be more proactive, meaning ASEAN can diversify its partners and does not limit itself on its options. And one of ASEAN potential partners is, of course, India. We can highlight some potential engagement between ASEAN and India, specifically in the maritime sectors. So international maritime organizations, this year, Hong Kong Conventions on Ship Recycling has become effective. So, and India has one of the biggest ship recycling yards in the world, located in Gujarat, India. So, for example, in Indonesia, we have many old commercial ships, around more than 25 years of lifespans, that the ships need to be either recycled or retrofit. Many ships in ASEAN is China's built, so China already benefiting more in these sectors. But I believe ASEAN and India can cooperate together in these recycling sectors. So it will benefiting both parties economically and enhancing compliance in sustainable maritime practice in ship recycling, where we prioritize the safety of the people and the environment. there are also other potential cooperations that we can explore with India. Hopefully, ASEAN India can manage to navigate through the global political tension, grow together as an equal partners, and balance the challenge posed by the great power in many sectors, green energy, security, and so on. So thank you everyone for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dimas, for highlighting about ASEAN centrality, the need to see ASEAN beyond market, and of course, to highlight the potential collaboration in the maritime sector with India. I'd like to invite the second speaker from the Indian side, Ms. Nandita Lata, Director of the Covering People's Republic of China, Geostrata. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Greetings and namaste to everyone. I'm Nandita and I'd like to thank the moderator for offering me the opportunity to contribute to this critical dialogue. In 2024, China ASEAN trade crossed $980 billion, making ASEAN China's largest trading partner. But this interdependence comes at a cost. Debt to China has dangerously increased, exposing the risk of strategic over reliance. Yet, ASEAN's challenge is not rejecting China, it's preserving strategic autonomy. This is where India's approach to China offers valuable insight. India China trade hit $138 billion last year, but India's balance trade with its own national interests. That's the balance ASEAN can and should strive for. The way forward lies in stronger South South cooperation by deepening ASEAN India ties through the Act East policy and frameworks rooted in mutual resilience. We shape a region on our own terms. And let's not overlook the power of youth. Over 60% of ASEAN's population is under 35 years. Youth diplomacy, through conferences like ours, must evolve into ASEAN India Youth Fellowships, joint climate action projects, and university led research networks. To close, ASEAN does not need to pick between Beijing or Washington. With India's example, it can pursue pragmatic engagement with China while shaping a multipolar, inclusive Indo Pacific that secures both resilience and autonomy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lata, for highlighting the need for having a stronger for dictating ASEAN's engagement with Beijing on its own terms rather than by Beijing's term, and also by highlighting the importance of youth diplomacy. You mentioned it rightly. We are a large population, but a young one, so we should really tap into that area. I'd like to invite the third speaker from Indonesia, Mr. Weli Winaldi, representing the ASEAN Center for Energy. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Felix, for the opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone, fellow delegates, and distinguished chairs and committee. It is such an honor for me to speak here, representing my country, Indonesia, and talks about the Indian insights regarding the development of China ASEAN strategic engagement. So the recent ASEAN-China G summit back in June really underscores a growing reality. It is that ASEAN is no longer a passive actor, but a region actively courted, and I would say is quite connected in multiple powers, not just in trade or economic aspect, of course, but also in energy, connectivity, and of course, sustainable development. As ASEAN deepens its ties with China and the Gulf countries, we are reminded that economic engagement today is not just about growth, but it's about resilience, balance, and of course, autonomy. At the same time, ASEAN and India find themselves navigating a world marked by geopolitical shifts, energy transitions, and rapid technological changes. In this evolving landscape and uncertainty, there is real opportunity for both regions to engage, not just as neighbors, but of course as strategic partners with shared interests. In that context, I believe there's a real space for ASEAN and India to work more closely. And first, maybe I'll start with that. Currently, ASEAN is working to strengthen its internal foundations through cleaner energy grids, greener transport, and even smarter green financing. Several ASEAN countries are also part of International Solar Alliance, or ISA, which was co-founded and led by India currently. And this can also be expanded to support solar deployment, knowledge transfer, and of course, affordable finance across the region. ASEAN can also tap into India's successful decentralized solar models and grid management expertise to help build more resilient system. And second point, there's potential for ASEAN to make platforms with India to support innovation in technologies like green hydrogen, battery storage, and also for carbon markets as well. India's experience with public-private institution, I would say, is quite strong and has been quite having such a good track record. With, for example, the Solar Energy Corporation of India, SECI, shows how dedicated agencies can drive large-scale clean energy deployment. Co-developing such international models and to incorporate those models in ASEAN, I think will help to pilot projects in ASEAN and also can bring much more real impact in the industry. And third, our collaboration must translate into tangible opportunities for people. We should co-create green skill hubs, fund youth-led climate startups, and launch mobility programs focused on sustainability and circular economy careers. Again, from Ibu Adindia, the Director of ASEAN Cooperation and Minister of Foreign Affairs Indonesia, youth is not just part of the conversation. We are all part of the changes. We are part of the people that will also lead this policy making, basically. So it isn't just about capacity building. It's about enabling a generation of ASEAN and India youth to become active contributors to the green transition. So in summary, as the world becomes more multipolar and independent, I think ASEAN and India have a very unique opportunity. That is to shape regional cooperation that's grounded in mutual respect, shared priorities, and smart strategy. Together, ASEAN can move with India from being influenced by global trends to becoming co-creators and equal partners on more inclusive, sustainable, and sovereign regional future. I'd like to discuss more about this with our delegates, and I would like to give the floor back to Mr. Felix, the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Winaldi, for your intervention. I'd like now to invite the fourth speaker, Ms. Arya Gadigaonkar, a research associate at the Geostrata. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Felix. Greetings to everyone. My name is Arya Gadigaonkar, and I'm a research associate at the Geostrata. Today, I would like to take this opportunity to talk about India and ASEAN trade relations. India, an association of Southeast Asian nations, are two key economic powerhouses of the Asian continent. ASEAN accounts for about 10% of India's total global trade, and the trade bilateral relations have reached around 121 billion US dollars. Recently, India and ASEAN have announced to review their free trade agreement, which first came into force in 2009. Now, why is that? This is due to certain reasons. Firstly, in the financial year 2013, India witnessed a trade deficit of only about 8 billion US dollars, whereas in the financial year 2023, it reached to over 44 billion US dollars, which is a significant trade deficit. Moreover, there are also certain factors like non-tariff barriers faced by the Indian exporters to the ASEAN nations. Therefore, a comprehensive review of the free trade agreement needs to be underway to address the asymmetries and also to enhance the trade facilitation between both India and ASEAN. To advance India and ASEAN partnership and to enhance regional economic engagement, there is a necessity that the free trade agreement needs to be rectified in a way that it balances and gives equal opportunities to both India and ASEAN nations. Therefore, I firmly believe that youth engagement can be contributed to this sector by equal research in the fields of emerging sectors, wherein we can contribute in a way that these sectors can be the future of India and ASEAN trade relations, and this can be something implemented within the upcoming free trade agreement between both the nations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arya. I'd like now to invite the fifth speaker, Mr. Kocak Korpencharat from Fudan University. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone hear me clearly? Hello. Okay, so first of all, thanks to all the distinguished delegates and also our moderators to facilitate today. So especially I got a very big question, which is like what can ASEAN can learn from Indian experience balancing economics engagement with a strategic concern. So actually, if you look over to the history, right? India and China, they're both of the country they're trying to define the Bretton Woods systems and also the Washington Consensus that has been set up in 1945 onwards and a long time ago. So they could be considered as the strategic partnership since then that they're trying to create some kind of like economic cooperation such as BRICS since 2008. Right. So first of all, ASEAN, how can they learn from a lot from India's and how to handle the complex relationship with China. India experience in doing the business with China while also protecting the independence and the security. So since the end of 20th centuries, India has to carefully manage the relations with China as well, as long as treating and as a both business partners and also strategic competitors because of the geopolitics. Despite the long-standing tensions over the borders and importance like Wuhan spirits or the Wuhan Jingshen that in the summit in 2018 and the Chennai Connects in 2019 highlight the practical approach. So the goal was to continue economic cooperations while clearly making the strategic limit that could not be crossed. India allows two-party policy. One hand, it increases the economic ties with China. On the other, it improves its own defense capabilities to prevent the potential aggressions. So there are a few points that I would like to highlight. So first of all, lesson to learn from the Indian experience. First of all, is that build the independence by trading with the many countries. Like instead of like relying too much on partners, India works to build a trade relationship with many different countries, ASEAN nations, which is often heavily on China's for their economic growth, and can do the same, and they can increase the trade with the major power like India, Japan, and European Union, Australia, and the United States through the agreement like ASEAN India trade free trade agreement as well. And also the second point that I would like to highlight, similarly to ASEAN's country can be continue to do business with China while also standing together to important issues such as territorial dispute in South China Seas and this kind of things. So we can say the India and China, they have like they try to separate between the economics corporations and so disputes, and they have set very good set up for the set up the very clear boundaries. Unlike in some Southeast Asian countries like in Thailand and Cambodia, right? We recently have the territorial disputes, but actually territorial dispute is not very bring into the international cooperation much, but it's just they use some kind of like the internal politics in both parties that make this more complicated. And last point, I would like to learn from how ASEAN from India. India is a self-reliance policies that focus on improving their own economies and technologies to be less independent on the others. Meanwhile, in Southeast Asian country, especially in Thailand or many places mainland Southeast Asia, they very relies on the Chinese technologies because it's the quality is okay, quite nice, and also the price is okay. So that's why we import a lot. And ASEAN countries also can work to building stronger and more resilient economies at home that make less easily to be swayed by external force and give that more freedom and flexibilities on their own decisions. So this is from my point of view. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna move on and next go to the next speaker, Mr. Ojas Tiwari, a junior researcher at the Geostrata. The floor is yours.
Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Ojas Tiwari, junior researcher at Geostrata. Today, we explore a pragmatic pathway to a resilient partnership. Culturally, our civilizational linkages from the Angkor Sanskrit inscription to Southeast Asia's vibrant Diwali celebrations remind us that soft power and shared heritage forge trust beyond treaties and clauses. On foreign policy, the ASEAN way of consensus building in the face of asymmetrical influence must incorporate India's model of competitive engagement by cooperating on climate finance and connectivity while resisting coercive diplomacy simultaneously. By forging trilateral axis of ASEAN, China, and India, we can institutionalize multilateralism that transcends zero-sum thinking. Economically, while China, ASEAN trade nears $1 trillion, debt exposure demands portfolio diversification. India's calibrated pivot, which is balancing robust 138 billion bilateral trade with firm readiness on its sovereignty, illustrates how economic independence need not to compromise on strategic autonomy. Further, with increased human capital towards youth-driven digital startups, joint climate research, and cross-border entrepreneurship will convert our demographic dividend into lasting resilience. By blending economic pragmatism with strategic patience, by engaging China without ceding autonomy, and deepening India-ASEAN synergy, we can collectively architect a multipolar, inclusive Indo-Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to move to the next speaker, Mr. Mira Satria of Shandong University. The floor is
Okay,
yours.
thank you very much. Thank you very much for the moderator, distinguished participants. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts on how India and ASEAN can create alternative visions for regional development beyond binary alignments. It is important to consider not only what we can learn from each other, but also how we can collaborate more meaningfully. ASEAN has demonstrated that it is possible to build a strong regional identity through inclusive dialogue, multilateral platforms, and people-centered cooperations, while avoiding entanglement in great power rivalries. ASEAN regional narrative is neither anti-China nor pro-West, but it's grounded in regional agency, mutual respect, and collective development. It offers compelling examples of how alternative visions can be shaped not by choosing sides, but by becoming a platform where all parties can engage in open and balanced dialogue. India, with its long-standing tradition of peaceful coexistence, shares many values that align closely with the ASEAN way. The principles outlined in the Pencil Treaty and the SAARC Charter, including non-interference and mutual respect, provide a strong foundation for Indonesia and ASEAN to promoting an international order that is multilateral, multipolar, inclusive, and resilient. We must also acknowledge a key reality. China global influence continue to grow, and these presents cannot be effectively addressed through isolated or nationalistic approach. While individual countries can initiate a narrative, sustaining and promoting it requires collective support. In this regard, ASEAN and India, which share the same core principle in international relations, are well positioned to co-create and uphold a joint narrative that support a multilateral and multipolar world order. At the same time, South ASEAN regionalism compared to Southeast Asia continues to evolve. Frameworks such as the SAARC provide a basis that can be further developed. Despite ongoing challenge, we recognize India's capacity and vision to contribute meaningfully to regional cooperations. In a world increasingly shaped by regional groupings, strengthening collaboration in South Asia can help build a more balanced and inclusive ASEAN architecture. Asia needs more active and cooperative regional blocs. Stronger regional poles are essential to shaping a future international order based on multilateralism and multipolarity, rather than one dominated by any single emerging superpower. If South Asia can establish a robust regional hub as ASEAN has done, then together ASEAN and South Asia could serve as two strategic centers of gravity, engaging China collaboratively and constructively rather than competitively. In conclusions, ASEAN experience over not just lessons, but a shared pathway. Together, India and ASEAN can shape regional narrative defined not by rivalry, but by partnership, stability, and collective progress. Thank you. I now pass the discussion back to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Mira, for your intervention. I'd like now to invite the eighth speaker, Mr. Nirnayan Gogoi, Project Coordinator at the Earthful Foundation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Namaskar, esteemed delegates present here today at the Indian-ASEAN Youth Conference hosted by Foreign Policy Talks in Geostrata. I'm Nir and I'm from Assam, and it is my absolute honor to be present here to speak about Asia's future, a future that we all can shape together. China is ASEAN's largest trading partner, and China's digital Silk Road initiative is transforming the whole of Southeast Asia. But challenges like the disputes in South China Sea and the concerns regarding personal freedom and sovereignty reminds us that balance is the key. And this is where we, India, step in. Through our Act East policy, we are strengthening our cultural, our economic, and our strategic ties with the ASEAN nations. For example, through the ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement, and through our joint military exercises like SIMPEX, Milan, and also through our various academic and cultural exchange programs between the ASEAN and Indian scholars. India's northeastern region, which is bordering Myanmar, It shares a historic cultural linkage and also various similarities in terms of language and culture with the Southeast Asia. Therefore, this can be a site, this can be a site for new opportunities. This can be a site for new collaborations, and it can open doors to new opportunities. So let us all imagine an Asia where India, China, and ASEAN, we all work together on climate action. We all work together on sustainable development, work together in digital growth. We work together on creating more jobs for us, for the youth. And as young leaders, we can push for this collaboration. In the words of Kaviguru Rabindranath Tagore, let me not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless in facing them. Let us all build a fearless, a bright future, not just for Asia, but for the whole world. Thank you so much and Dhanabad.
Thank you so much, Nirayan, for your intervention. Now I'd like to invite the next speaker, Ms. Siti Zulaika from the AIMST University. The floor is yours.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
So thank you for the moderator for this opportunity. So first of all, I would like to shift your eyes on this. Okay, look at this 100 RMB note. It is printed in Malaysia on paper of Indian mills funding Chinese tech in Jakarta. This is the real Indo-Pacific, not a chessboard, but we need to understand that this is the supply chain that we are all tangled in. I am Siti Zulaika, a university student in Malaysia, where last month, there's a published news on Indian engineers maintaining Chinese built tracks, and while US-funded NGOs train our cybersecurity teams. It may sound complicated now, hence I am here to show how the youth are cutting through the noise with 3 concrete projects that force the world to see China beyond threat or savior. First of all, the forensic diplomacy, the ship shooter case study. Remember when China's Yuan 5 research ship docked in Sri Lanka in 2022? Indian media screamed spy ship. So we, the ASEAN outlet, dismissed concern as a routine. So the youth launched a project called Ship Shooter, mobilizing 50 maritime students from Chennai to Surabaya to track its movement in real time by comparing the speed and the pattern of the USNS Bowitch. We expose the gaps in the sensational narrative. So the results, a viral thread with 2.1 million views that forced even the Indian Navy to retweet, proving that when the youth bring data to the debate, we replace the hysteria with hard questions. Second, the BRI Ground Truth Project. While politicians nowadays are arguing about the debt traps, we send the youth team with drones and surveys to map every BRI project in ASEAN. Our BRI Impact Index now score projects on real metrics, like the 63 Cambodian staff at Sihanoukville port or the Indian engineers upgrading Myanmar fibers optics. This ground truth had immediate impact, which is Laos Parliament use our data real long terms. No more abstract fears, just facts. This is how we, the youth, turns China threat into China clarity. And the last one, Silk Road Simulator. Nowadays, youth have made geopolitics addictive as a road simulator, where youth can turn strategy into a gameplay where it forces everyone to confront complexity. So this is my conclusion. This project proves that youth don't just want to sit at the table. We are actually building better tools for the discussion, forensic diplomacy, ground truth audit, and gamified policy. This is how youth move beyond binary debates and redefine engagement. The future won't be shaped by those who yell loudest about China. This is not a choice between fear and dependence, but as a challenge to document, decode, and redesign our future together. I am happy to delve deep into the topic with the others delegate. That is all from me. I gladly yield back my time to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Siti, for a wonderful intervention. Now, I'd like to move to the last speaker before we move to the discussion session. Mr. Aryavir Sharma, Director at Covering Prime Minister at the Geostrata. Floor is yours.
Thank you for recognizing me, Felix. And it's really great to have you with us here on the third session of an India-ASEAN Youth Conference. Greetings of the day, everyone. As someone coming from India, a country that shares a long, complex, and often contested border with China, I bring with me not just headlines and policy postures, but lived geopolitics. India and China are ancient civilizations, bound by millennia of cultural exchanges. And yet, in the modern era, our relationship has swung like a pendulum between cooperation and confrontation, and commerce and caution. The rise of China is not just a regional phenomena, it is reshaping the very architecture of global power. ASEAN, positioned right at the heart of this transformation, faces a similar dilemma. This is where India's own journey may offer insights not just as prescription, but as a perspective. India engages China economically, but not exclusively. Despite massive bilateral trade, India has consciously diversified its supply chains, strengthened ties with alternate partners, be it Japan, the European Union, or even the ASEAN itself, and investment in regional groupings like Quad and the BIMSTEC. India does not shy away from engaging China on global platforms, even cooperating in BRICS and the SCO. It also draws hard lines on sovereignty, as seen in its firm response post Operation Sindoor. For ASEAN, often finds itself navigating the South China Sea disputes. This signals the importance of asserting red lines firmly but diplomatically. India's focus on Atmanirbharta or self-dependence, which is self-reliance in actuality, isn't about isolationism in itself, but internal strengthening. ASEAN can benefit from regional initiatives that empower its members collectively, be it through stronger intra-ASEAN trade or investment in digital infrastructure. Regional strength is the best buffer against external overreach. So, how do we move ahead? We must adopt what I would call the 3C framework. Number one, caution in navigating asymmetries. Number two, cooperation in areas of mutual gain. And number three, collective agency to preserve regional autonomy. As youth leaders, we are not just future diplomats or policymakers. We are already inheritors of these choices. It is our role to imagine partnerships not just based on GDP charts or trade volumes, but on dignity, fairness, and sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your intervention, Aryavir. Now we are moving to the discussion session. I'm aware of the limited time that we have. So while I also already saw there's a lot of exchange in the chat box, I'd like perhaps to set the context in terms of how can us as a region and India learn from each other, of course, beyond the leveraging and becoming autonomy and not dependent on any other country. But let's talk about how can we create narratives of an alternative visions for regional development, especially within India and ASEAN that move beyond binary alignment with major powers. I'd like to invite anyone who are interested to give any thoughts on that.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Sorry, the signal is, I have a little problem with the signal here. So sorry if there's any trouble when I'm speaking. Okay, I think what Mr. Felix Patrick asking about is really related to my topics. So I have an idea that I have a belief that the future world order will be multipolar and multilateral. That's the first point in my idea. And to reach the point where multipolar and multilateral. Hello?
Yes. You're audible.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Felix. I couldn't solve the problem about signal here.
No worries.
So
we
maybe
can
to
all hear
the
you.
next
Okay.
speaker.
Okay, very well. Yeah, go ahead, Nandita.
Thank you for your question. How can ASEAN and India move forward together by co-creating a narrative? Firstly, deepening connectivity. It's very important, enhancing physical, digital, and people-to-people connectivity. Secondly, aligning developmental goals as well, collaborating on sustainable development, climate action, and inclusive growth. And lastly, through institutional synergy as well, encouraging dialogues like ours between regional bodies like ASEAN and SARC to share best practices and jointly tackle these transnational challenges as well in climate change, supply chain, and maritime security.
Okay, thank you so much, Nandita. And I'd like to move it to Coach Hop. Please go ahead.
So I think India's have a very advantage in terms of like the cultural tied with Southeast Asian countries. So first of all, before we engage into like the economics or something like that, we need to build the trust to people, as the speaker that had mentioned before. So as we can see, right, for examples, like we can see the current disputes between Thailand and Cambodia recently, that we have exchanging fires, and also is also involved into the internal politics from both countries. The thing is like they put this kind of issues into the UNESCO, and also to the they try to push this case into ICJ. But the thing is, then the main claim of the both sides is about the cultural things, about how the architectures, how it's like belongs to Khmer's. It's like it's a lot. It was built upon the nationalisms, which is nationalism history, and then also like hyper nationalism history that was actually it was built since the colonial period, that tried to separate the people, that tried to create the ethnicity that India also been has been experienced something like that. So I think this is the point that India should encourage and support this kind of policy that to promote that actually we have the common identity in terms of like that we index states, like index I would say is like we have a lot of Indian influence in Southeast Asia. But nowadays it seems like especially in Thailand and Cambodia, they don't really realize about the connections between Indian cultures and also their identities nowadays. I think that they can use this kind of topics to encourage people to have a mutual understanding and create a mutual trust within the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to invite anyone else who would like to give any further remarks. But if we don't have any further remarks, actually, I want to move to more after understanding between ASEAN and India. I think we can all agree we have a lot of modalities to work together, and there are a lot of opportunities to tap into. So, because the second session is about China, my question is about how can we as a youth, and as the generation that will take over later, take over the mantle, how can we ASEAN and India contribute to a more nuanced understanding about China's regional role, and how can we foster a more informed and calibrated policy discourse and collaboration in the future? Because as perhaps CT mentioned earlier, I think it really highlights how better how highlighting between the nuances and the narrative by showing the ground facts can really influence policy making. So I'd like to invite anyone who are interested to give remarks on that. Yes, go ahead, Whaley.
Okay, Mr. Felix, thank you so much. I think you are touching in a very interesting aspect of, let's say, current youth role in policy. Because I came from international relation background, right? And currently I'm in the energy sector. And one thing that I can tell you guys is that as the world grows, I think everything starts to be more interdisciplinary. Everything starts to be much more connected, and everything starts to be much more intertwining as it is. And I would say, in this context, we can start by building policy literacy, not just about thinking that, oh, only the governments can make policy. Oh, maybe only experts can make policy. But us, the youth, I think what's more important coming from us is by voicing our own, minds or opinions regarding the issue itself. So when it comes to policy, I think we should really change the pattern. So it's not that, oh, we need to be, for example, an expert or smart in certain things first, but at least we need to be aware. We need to be caring. We need to be much more, yeah, let's say, have an empathy on certain things. And I think that's one way we can start. And basically, you know, trying to basically preparing ourselves, our generation, to be the future policymaker in facing, maybe more instability, maybe another US tariff in the way. I don't know, but I think at least in that point we can start by that. I would like to discuss this more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wiley. Nandita, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, really, for your insights. I would also like to add, like, as the next generation of leaders, we have a very vital role in shaping a deeper and more balanced understanding. So, firstly, we must actively take part in Track 2.5 dialogues and diplomacy through youth conferences, academic exchanges, and informal diplomacy, where government and the civil society voices meet. Second, we need to invest in rigorous research, diving into China's history, policies, and its actions across Asia to move beyond simplistic and one sided narratives. In doing so, we don't just inherit policy, but we help shape it for future generations as well with clarity and responsibility.
Thank you so much, Nandita. Please, Shamira, go ahead.
Hi, I think I have a slightly different perspective about this, and I think I would like to also highlight about the ASEAN Indian diaspora as a strategic bridge. So we have lots of Indian diaspora across the world, and I'm one of them actually. My parents are from India. So just to highlight about it, so the ASEAN India diaspora is one of the most dynamic yet under leveraged assets in the Indian ASEAN partnership. So from Malaysia, Singapore to Myanmar, Thailand, Indonesia, the Indian origin communities have deep historical roots and also deeply embedded in the social, economic, and political fabric of their respective countries. So they also serve as a natural connectors, preserving centuries-old cultural linkages while driving modern trade, innovation, and also diplomacy. Many are successful entrepreneurs, professional, and policymakers who champion across business network, academic collaboration, and also youth-led initiatives. So by establishing an ASEAN India diaspora engagement platform, we can institutionalize their role as a strategic partner in areas like digital economy, climate change, climate action, education, people to people ties, more than just a cultural representation, but an ASEAN Indian diaspora can be key players in shaping a resilient, inclusive, and forward looking ASEAN Indian future. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Interesting thoughts on diaspora. I'd like to invite anyone else before we wrap up our discussion to give any further inputs, remarks, or comment. I certainly see that I think this is just a start. I think we should continue this conversation maybe in a different platform, in the WhatsApp group perhaps. But I think it's gonna be a challenge to create a summary of this second session. But what I just want to say, I think this is a really good start that I think hopefully Geostrata and foreign policy talks can continue forward next year and make it more than annual event. But this is just an idea. Because the time is reaching 3:50, so I'm gonna give it to Anirban to close the conference. And on behalf of Foreign Policy Talks and for me, if I, as a moderator, I just want to say thank you very much and apologies if I misspoke or mispronounced any of your names. Thank you so much. Over to you, Anirban.
Thank you, Mr. Felix, for giving me the floor. It has been an amazing conference. I was sitting since the beginning. As the final speaker of the conference, what I have observed here is that um, to wrap up the basic understanding of the conference in general. And this particular conference has also revealed like what exactly our region is all about. I mean, I'm talking specifically from the prism of the Indo-Pacific region in general, where both India and ASEAN is a part of. Firstly, what exactly has been mentioned
as a dominant topic in the conversations that I was seeing in the chat. I was seeing over the conferences that I was seeing in the individual speeches by the delegates as well. The intense power politics and competition remains a dominant factor and will likely to affect the existing power dynamics, especially affecting the bilateral and multilateral relations. So therefore, it also helps us to put our questions like why exactly does the ongoing developments keeps India in its relations with ASEAN, which the relations is obviously the centuries-old relations that we are already aware of. First, I suggest, and what exactly I think will be the concluding remarks of this conference here is that there needs to be a growing need to remove the current obstacles that affects the trade and economic connections and other connectivity issues between the India and ASEAN countries. Second, there is a need to identify the growth prospects, especially on the need of the technological developments and innovations, especially if we try to focus on the green tech, focus on the latest technological developments around artificial intelligence. These are some of the pointers that should be kept in mind. Third, I also think there needs to a refocus on existing cooperation agreements, especially on connectivity. I mean, with regard to contemporary security arrangements that are currently existing in the region that affects the maritime security, counterterrorism, cyber security. These are some of the interesting points of discussions that has remained in the background, especially as a part of this conference. Third, at the end, I would like to thank the partners, the colleagues who has been a part of this conference, and to end with one of the quotations by the keynote speaker here is that cooperation beats competitions. And I'd like to thank once again for everyone for putting up their inputs and suggestions. Your participations and engagement is a step ahead in further advancing the importance of developing close youth-led synergies between India and ASEAN, especially from the representatives from the India and ASEAN countries. And by this particular statement, I'd like to pass back the floor to Ms. Agrima for her end remarks.
Thank you, Anirban, for those closing remarks. With that, we come to an end. I would like to thank all the speakers and delegates from the Foreign Policy Talk and the Geostrata, as well as our special guests from the ASEAN Economic Cooperation, Indo-ASEAN Business Chamber, and our special Mr. Noot for their valuable insight. As youth remains a pivotal in addressing shared religion through global challenges, we look forward to a continued dialogue, partnership, and progress in the years ahead. Thank you, everyone.